It is 1 p.m. PT, so let's get this started. First off, I just want to say that we're really excited to be doing this AMA for the Upland 2021 roadmap. When we released the roadmap last week, it was really positively received. Obviously there were a large number of items that were in the roadmap, but there are also still items that were not in the roadmap. And it seems like the community has a really solid understanding of why we're making the choices that we're making, and has been very supportive of the direction that we're taking Upland in. So that's been really exciting. It's been one of the more popular posts on Medium. I think last time I checked, it has the most views in the shortest period of time ever. One of our most popular posts on Discord, and one of our most popular organic tweets as well, all about the 2021 roadmap. So today we have two of the founders here of Upland. We have Idan, who's our head of product. Most of the things that you see in the game are a result of his wonderful work. And we also have Dirk here, who is our head of community and our public relations. So all of the partnerships that we have going on, a lot of the great community work that you guys are all experiencing every day is a result of Dirk's work. And I'm here, John. I'm a product manager, and I work on the live operations, working with both Idan and Dirk on that. So we got over 100 questions for this AMA, and because of that, we had to group some of the questions and combine some of them. So if you don't hear the exact version of the question you asked, it might be because we kind of combined 2 or 3 different questions, so we can make sure we're addressing the most questions from the most players as efficiently as we can, because we're trying to keep this to under 90 minutes. And to keep things organized, we group the questions by topic. So we can jump in right now and we'll get started answering questions about our first topic, which is movement in the game. So the first question we have is, will explorers/cars follow streets, or will they keep floating over properties?
I'll take that one. So first of all, hello everybody. Glad to have everybody here in this live AMA. Yeah, so maybe if we focus for a second on as it relates to 2021, as we're talking about 2021 roadmap. So yes, explorer movement will be still done over properties as well as over roads. I would say for 2021, one exception may be when we introduce the Genesis car racing. The racetrack will be probably restricted to roads and highways, etc.
Cool, gotcha, that makes sense. So the next one we have on movement is, considering the new features, true movement and speed for the block explorers, as you specified in the roadmap, will having a car have any impact on treasure hunting, or will treasure hunting stay an explorer only race as it is now?
Yeah, so I think we may have discussed this in the past, and maybe it's a good time to reiterate. When we introduce true movement speed, that will have an inherent effect on the treasure hunt mechanic, which means that we will need to rebalance the mechanic, and there are different ways that we can do that. But obviously, this won't interfere with treasure hunts in a way that will make it, which will cause people to not be able to compete because they don't have a car, for example. So yes, any effects that this mechanic will have on treasure hunts will be rebalanced with additional mechanic tweaks.
Gotcha, cool. That's exciting to hear. So this next question is about air travel, it looks like. So the cost of air travel didn't throttle New York purchasing at all. I guess some players thought that would be the case. So it prevented some players from making it to New York and purchasing property. So the question that's being asked here by Jim Juice is, would reducing the flight cost to 1,000 UpX be a solution? And if not, what are we going to do about flight costs to make it more accessible in the next year?
Yeah, so maybe take a step back and look back at why we have travel costs and travel time. And again, this is not a mechanic that's meant to generate revenues. And maybe Jim Juice touched it correctly a bit when saying that this is meant to create a barrier for, ever so slight barrier for changing locations in the game. And our general overall view is that this notion will kind of like help cultivate the different subtleties and differences between different communities in different locales throughout Upland. So again, if traveling was set to 0 and 0 time, being in a different location wouldn't mean anything in Upland. And we do want to cast this meaning into Upland. And we do want eventually different cities to have different types of appearances and different communities and different things going on. And I think that travel barrier is what kind of like helps to build that towards that vision. Now, obviously, we can argue what's the right price. Is it 1,000 or 2,500 for a flight between San Francisco and New York? Our current estimates are kind of like set on this mechanics that exist today. We do not see a reason so far to reduce that cost and to make it less frictional.
Gotcha. Makes sense. All right. So moving right along, the next movement question: Will you be able to offer seats in your car for a road trip between Fresno and San Francisco?
Yeah, this is absolutely on our minds. We can't say that this will come with the launch of the car NFT and car functionality, but definitely on our minds. Yes. And just in general, it maybe relates to a kind of like bigger economy question where we want people to start be able to offer services to one another in Upland, which is very exciting. And one of such services could be, hey, you can hitch a ride with me when we go out to a different city or for a road trip or to compete in some kind of a cannonball race. So that could be exciting.
Cool. Different ways to leverage your assets. All right. And we got one more question that we're going to address here on movement. And that's, will some cars be faster than others? And will there be set parameters for cars, or will you also be able to upgrade / modify your cars?
Yeah, so it's yes to all, basically. There will be differences between cars. We are currently working on speccing out the car NFT that will contain all of these attributes that the car can have, such as speed, power, reliability, the life of its engine. Because when you travel with a car in Upland, we're going to track your odometer. So imagine a car NFT. There is actually going to be a difference between a used car and a new car in Upland, which is exciting. And it's all going to be kind of like documented in the specifications of the car NFT. So going back to your question, yes to all.
Got it. Cool, cool. All right, so moving right on along, we are now in the business category. And our first question up here from NG is an easy one. Will leasing buildings to other players require a business license, or will this be available to everyone? The answer is no, it will not require a business license, so it will be available to everyone. And the next question we have in business is, you suggested that 5 million UpX is a necessary starting point for a Decor business, and that includes 1 year of free business licensing. What are your projections for subsequent yearly running costs? Dirk, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be also with all of you together on this AMA. And looking into this business question. So first of all, maybe before I come to the concrete answer, is businesses is about becoming a mini entrepreneur in Upland. That's a very important thing you have to remember. It's a new kind of real world mechanic which has never been explored like this the way we want to do it. And this is also why we're running lots of beta tests before, because as economies in general are very complex beasts, and they have to be treated very carefully, especially in the beginning. And once we better understand, then we can roll it out quicker and to more people. So that's one of the main reasons we started off with some small tests now, and then eventually we'll enable it for everyone, also with good business models behind it. So the question here was, right now we had suggested that is correct. It was only, that's an idea, a proposal from on our end for 5 million UpX for a block for a Decor shop or Decor business. What's the cost after 1 year? So, I mean, this highly depends really at the end of the day on the operator, how he's going to work, and what he's looking for, and also it depends on the upcoming Spark economy. And this is exactly the things we want to try out in beta and want to find out how things are, how things are behaving to each other, because it's not, we have lots of different components which will be important. Will there, multiple, types shops will have the same characteristics? How many people or how many users will be in a certain region? So there's so many implications implications at the moment, which just really makes it hard. But this is also what it's in general is about, all the thing about entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is that you actually sail out to the unknown. You don't know what's coming, but as you discover new things, you change course, and hopefully you sail into the right direction.
Cool. And our next question is also from Ben68. Who sets the prices for both Explore and Decor shop items, and what will the profit margin of these be for business owners?
So, so in general, the prices of the of all items are set by the owner. So that's very important, right? So if you have created those decors, right, and you yourself, and then of course you set the price yourself. However, if you're running on Block Explorer shop and you're selling maybe Block Explorers on behalf of others, all you do is setting the fees, right? That and to see how many people will come into your Block Explorer shop. But again, it depends everything again on the business operations themselves.
Got it. So it gives a lot of autonomy. That's really cool. All right, so next, are there official processes in place now for players in part to apply for businesses together?
I mean, this is a great idea. It goes in a completely direction that we actually want people to collaborate and work together. On short term, it's not going to be possible, but as we want to mimic the real world, as you know, in real worlds, you have 1 or 2, 3 people who are founders of a company or shareholders, and they partner together. And actually, it's something in the mid to long term we would even recommend, because when you think about it, the best companies, when founders are working together, they have different skills. Some people might be great in marketing, others might be great in design, and that's actually a good founder team, because not everyone has the same skills and expertise in all areas.
Yep, definitely some good wisdom there about how to start a company together. Make sure you have complementary talents. So this next question, will established businesses be able to be sold? And if so, how will that sale work?
So in general, yes, this should be possible. Again, but it is going to be very important as long as it does not somehow go against our terms of services or something. But we completely would support that and not interfere here if people are planning on doing that. So that's of course it's a market economy.
Got it. All right, we got one more for you, Dirk, here in business. If selected as a business, how long do we have to secure the suggested funding? Is this 5 mil, for example, to be passed on or to be held in a trust by Upland, or held and managed entirely by the business owner?
So it's let's say we hold it in trust in a certain sense, and but it can be used by the owner as needed, but we want to do that together with you, and everything is on a good faith basis, right? That's a reason, especially in the beginning, we're going to work very closely with the small numbers of business owners to ensure, that they are successful, because if they are successful, we are all successful. Simple as that.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. All right. Next question. Will you be able to accept payments for Decor and Block Explorers in fiat or just UpX in the future? Idan, do you want to take that one?
Sure. Yeah. So with all businesses that we are, working on specifications for right now and in 2021, we want to create a mix of being able to use both UpX and also fiat as means to exchange value. So hopefully it's going to be both. Again, our long-term vision is for people to be able to mix both. So if somebody owns, for example, a very valuable Block Explorer, and he wants to extract value back into the real world for it in terms of USD or other fiat currencies, they should have the means to be able to do it in Upland.
Gotcha. Cool. All right. Next question. What will cafes mean for the communities that have flourished here? If they are limited, do they run the risk of being exclusive when almost everything here is so inclusive? So I believe by here, they're referring to the Upland community, which is, as we all know, primarily the Discord is where most of the activity is. And so the answer here is there will be enough cafes for players of really any type to participate and find community, right? Just like in the real world, you have, you know, cafes where the average person attends opera, and you have cafes where the average person's in a punk band. And so, you know, we really want to see that diversity brought to Upland as well. And we believe that, you know, players will lead those different niches in helping develop those communities. All right, so next question. For the business beta program, I filled out the application participation form, but there was no response that this was received. Do I have to resubmit the form? So we've had a couple of questions about forms lately and whether or not resubmission is necessary. Just for the record, guys, this is across all the forms that we put out there. The reason we're using Google Forms is because it's a thoroughly vetted, trusted, third-party, you know, very well-developed platform, and it allows us to collect information very seamlessly and efficiently and get everything in a spreadsheet. So you can be sure that anything that goes into a Google form, we are 100% getting and we are processing, especially when it comes to these business applications. They've been closed since yesterday. We got over 75, and there will be no need to submit. We're processing them right now, and we will be following up with next steps in the near future. All right. Next question. Will the committed money be blocked, or the player be able to spend it on their own initiative to develop their business? So I think that's a little bit of a variation on a question you already addressed,
Yeah.
Dirk. Would you want to clarify that?
Yeah, so I mean, short answer, yes, will be completely on your own initiative, so the player's initiative. However, you know, since we have a little bit more oversight over data, we know how other businesses are performing, what's working well, what does not work well, and so on. So we always recommend to be very close contact with us and to discuss things, because again, we want you to thrive. However, if you think you know everything on your own, it's all up to you to the way you want to operate your business.
Gotcha. All right, next question. When will businesses be rolling out, since applications are pretty much closed? Now, we mentioned that there would be a bit of a process for this, and we're still developing that process, as I mentioned in response to 2 questions up. But Idan, do we have anything further that we can provide there on when businesses will be rolling out?
Yeah, so I would refer back to the roadmap, and we envision that the first business is going to be the Block Explorer shops, and followed by the home decor shops. And as we mentioned in the roadmap, nothing has changed since 2 weeks ago.
Gotcha. Cool. All right. The engagement Spark rewards. We're on to the Spark now. We have a couple questions in Spark category. The engagement Spark rewards points mention that players will be rewarded Spark for engagement and progression in the game. Does this include more than just a player's rank, or will it be similar to Spud and just focus on rank? Idan, you want to take that one?
Yeah, so I mean, I can interpret that question in a couple of ways. So maybe to clarify, so there's one, when we launch Spark and property development, we're going to have kind of like a citizen airdrop to appreciate the beta testers from the community. So everybody's going to get some sort of Spark, and that will be measured by an algorithm that would measure different matrix of past engagement over Upland's beta lifetime. And it will be very different than how we did the spot drops. So that's kind of like one thing. That's the citizen airdrop. And as for specifically what we mentioned in the roadmap for engagement rewards, so we're going to start once property development is kicked off, we're going to have a special pool of Spark that we've identified back when we released the information about Spark, that's going to help us to kind of like promote engagement in the game. And what it provides us is an alternative way to reward players that does not inflate the Apex economy per se. So that gives us just yet another tool to give out either prizes or level up bonuses or long-term engagement bonuses. So today, for example, as people may know, when you start out your journey in Upland, for the first 2 weeks, you get some kind of a special sign-up bonus to encourage you to come back to the game every day. And the reason it's limited is because if we gave that indefinitely, that would be just irresponsible inflation of Apex on our side. So again, it just kind of like emphasizes the fact that Spark will give us another tool to reward players without necessarily inflating the Apex economy.
Got it. All right, next question for you, Idan. Will we be able to lease Spark from the beginning?
The answer to that is no. So again, referring back to the roadmap, you can see that property development is meant, our target is to release that in Q1, whereas the Spark Exchange is mentioned to be developed in Q1 and most likely deployed over Q2. And we realize that this can be a bit stressful for people who will not be able to kind of like boost their development efforts. That may take time because we're talking about, again, non-transient, final NFT-based structures. But what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to deliver the feature that would help people pull together efforts for the sake of construction projects. We're going to try to deliver that as soon as possible, and that may happen before the Spark Exchange is done. So at least, two or more Uplanders can team up and kind of like stake their Spark on a similar project. And again, it may not be released immediately with property development, but we are trying to get that as soon as possible so people can actually get more construction time out of the project.
Gotcha. Very cool. That'll generate a lot of very powerful collaborations in the community. So this next question might be the result of some confusion. The question is, when is the Spark drop happening? And maybe what we need to address here is, is the Spark drop directly connected to the release of property development?
Absolutely, yes. There is no property development without Spark. So right. For sure, people will need to have access to their Spark in order to start property development. And so yes, goes back to the roadmap. Our release target for property development and Spark is Q1 of this year.
All right, the next question. We have a couple of questions about property development that came from MG. Will it cost Spark /UpX/time to demolish a building? The answer to that is no, not for now. We don't currently have any plans for that to be the case. The next question, are there any estimates on how many Spark hours a small building will take? Now, the truth is we'll have to announce that at launch. There are a number of details around property development that are, and other features that are just gonna come when we release those features. And this is one of them. But I will say that it'll be a lot more than the cost has been during the sandbox, right? We sped things up during the sandbox events to make things more engaging. But as Idan mentioned, this is going to be a more serious commitment of resources when it comes to the fact that you're actually developing a permanent NFT on our platform. So that'll take a little bit longer. Next is, from how many buildings can we choose when property development goes live? And again, we will have those details when we're actually ready to go live with them. But for now, we can say it'll be between 6 and 10 models at the beginning, and it'll go up from there. Next question, is there a max number of objects you will be able to place on a property, and does it depend on size? So there will be no max number of objects you can put on a property, and it'll just depend on size. However, items will not be able to overlap with each other. So the constraint will be the size/space on the property. All right, next question, moving right along. With the introduction of construction, landscape/city views can start playing a role. Are there any plans to improve the graphics of the game to support this? Idan, do you want to take that one?
Sure, yeah. The short answer is yes, but let me give you a bit of more detailed answer. So one thing to keep in mind is, again, Upland is kind of like cross-platform application, and it needs to run well on mobile devices. So currently today, what you're seeing is that the app, pretty much the experience caters to the lowest denominator that would still be playable on an average mobile device. And that's why, sometimes the graphic may seem maybe underwhelming, or at least as though they could be taken a notch up. What we plan in the immediate future is at minimum to provide the option for the player that if they are running on a high-end device or running Upland on a PC that can sustain it, we would give them the option to proactively enhance the graphics that would look much, much better. And that way, still people who play on suboptimal devices can still enjoy the experience as well. So I hope that answers the question.
Gotcha, very cool. So we want to keep improving the graphics, but ensure that there's support for devices that any player can have anywhere in the world. It's really great. All right, next one. When the nursery business is released, will there be any benefit to turning an entire property or block into a forest, fully covered with trees and or bushes? And so I can take this one. So plants and gardens will contribute to the neighborhood development ratings. And we can kind of follow the real world logic on that one. Areas that have, nicer gardens and planted areas generally, are more popular neighborhoods and considered to have a higher standard of living. But there will not be a special like forest feature that will be implemented in standard city blocks. And farms will be kind of a dedicated mechanism. However, we can't comment on that right now until we do a little bit more planning around that feature. So the short answer is no. Next question. Will depreciation be a factor in regards to buying properties that have already been developed? Will developing a property initiate some sort of maintenance costs subtracted from the monthly yield of that property? So that's a really interesting question, but as of right now, there is no plan for maintenance costs at this point. All right, so now we are moving on to the decor category. We have a couple questions in there, and they're all going to be directed at Idan. First one is, when buying decor from a decor shop, will it go into a player's inventory where they can place it anywhere in any non-vanilla city? Or will a piece of decor bought in San Francisco have to be placed in San Francisco, and a piece of decor bought in Fresno have to be placed in Fresno? And once placed, is it permanent to that property or can it be moved?
Yeah, so that's a great question that has been on our mind. And the answer is, at the beginning, when we launch, movable 3D objects on properties as NFTs, you will just have the option to own and place them on one of your properties, regardless of where their location is. But having said that, we do want to move into a system where when you need to transport a 3D object across, from city to city, you will need to transport it quite per se and not just drop it. So again, just the shorter answer is, at the beginning, no, there won't be such requirement, but we definitely see this requirement in the future.
Got it, cool. So next one, what level of detail are you expecting for the decor item blueprints to be submitted? Can you describe or show an example?
Yeah, I can say that prior to the launch of these businesses, we will release a full style guide that the owners can work with. Either if they are designers, they can read and interpret them themselves, or forward them to the designers that they work with. So we'll have full specifications of exactly what you can do, and everything will be done hand in hand with our team. So again, there's no such things yet, but there will be prior to the launch of these businesses.
Cool. All right, last one in decor. If we create decor, do we have sole rights to that creation? And do we submit decor to the Upland team to create my design? Or will we be creating it similar to Second Life?
Okay, so again, if I'm reading this question correctly, only property decor shop owners can create property decors. And those would be kind of like imagined by these owners and approved by the Upland team in terms of just how they look and whether or not, I mean, obviously we can't have people putting, I heard there was a suggestion in the community to mark like inside of apartments at not safe for work or not. But I'm imagining that we're not gonna have NSFW 3D objects on the map, for example, at least at the beginning, just to kind of like protect the more delicate audiences of Upland.
Got it. All right, so next question, will watch lists be implemented so players can tag properties to receive automatic updates when said properties are placed on sale, change ownership, etc.? So we do not plan on implementing that in the immediate roadmap, but it is definitely a part of our future feature set around property management. As we mentioned in the roadmap, Pro Tools will be a big part of that. So we're going to focus on that first layer of property management tools and data, and then we'll be advancing that as time goes on. All right, now we're moving into the economy topic. The first question we have here is, how high are the chances that the yield of properties will be cut/reduced in the next 2 years? Dirk?
Okay, I just read in the chat that we are so serious, so we're trying to make a joke. So we're reducing it, actually cutting it today. No more yield. Done.
Bye, see ya.
Okay, bad joke. No, so in terms of the yield which we currently have, as you know, the reason why we have it is in order to stimulate economic activity in the beginning. And as there will be more economic activity between the different stakeholders, Upland as such can take a step back as being the ones who subsidize this economy. This is a very common thing also in real life economies. As soon as what is called in terms of velocity, when this velocity increases between the stakeholders, we will pull out and then we'll decrease that. Will that happen the next 2 years? We don't know yet. It all depends how businesses are taking off and how interactions are going to happen.
Okay, cool. And one more for you, Dirk. What is a long-term plan for properties owned by players that quit the game, leaving scattered properties that will never be developed, upgraded, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, right now they're going to be undeveloped, those properties. That's just the way it is because they own the properties and we cannot just take them away as a state or whatever. Also, that's nothing we intend on doing. However, we were thinking about especially that topic, and as you know, we've in the roadmap we mentioned that there will be that when you are an owner, when you start playing, there will be beneficiaries. And so that's something we want to implement also a little bit later. So when you can name someone and then, in case you disappear or whatever, then there's a chance that, the beneficiary can take over your property. Of course, we have to really take a deep look into it. So we don't have any, things which go against our terms of services, but that's the idea that, there will be ongoing ownership and ownership which is incentivized to build on in Upland some structures and other things on the properties.
Got it. All right, next question. What do you do about the fact that many new players are strongly disadvantaged compared to a few players who have been playing Upland for a long time? So I'll take that one. There's a couple of really straightforward answers here. One is that it's actually still really early in Upland, right? Obviously, if you spend a lot of time in the Discord, there are some entrenched players that have been putting a lot of effort into this game for a long time, but we are still very early and releasing, a lot of functionality in this upcoming year, which will give newer players a lot of opportunities to get engaged and really get a piece of the Upland world. In addition to that, there's the fact that every time we launch a new city, it gives new players an opportunity to buy into those cities and really create their own strongholds and get set up in a similar way to the way that players are currently set up in San Francisco and New York and even Fresno. And the last thing I'll say is we're always developing new opportunities and new features to try to engage newer players and give them a better chance at getting going in Upland. And a perfect example of that is the FSA, which if you recall is the Fair Start Act, which isn't just the set of practices we've already implemented. It also includes policies and procedures that we'll implement in the future to help support players getting started in Upland. Okay, next question. Dirk, you already kind of commented on this. How actively does the development team intend to manipulate the in-game economy? What are the goals which potentially will drive that manipulation? So why would we manipulate the economy?
I mean, first of all, manipulation is a strong word to my mind. It's maybe speaking in real life terms, it's more a policy we have, like monetary policy. And the ultimate goal is that we want to have a stable economy, and that is very important. That we, when there's too much things going the wrong direction, then we have to intervene. But as for now, it's a very simple economy these days because all we do for the moment sell properties and properties are getting sold on the marketplace. So it's not that complicated right now to control. Of course, it will get a bit more complicated once we have additional goods which were going to be introduced and other NFTs and so on. And then we have to think about other ways of measuring, let's say, money supply and money demand, velocity items, and you usually do that in real life with having a basket of different goods, and then you look how things and how prices are developing. Probably that has been well established since many years in central bank policies, and we're going to do probably pretty much the same in order to ensure the stability of the economy.
So we have a couple follow-up ones to that one, Dirk, that I think dovetail nicely. The next one is how is inflation of UpX being handled? How will the value of earned / invested UpX be protected in the long term?
So, so first of all, as you know, we right now we have a fixed exchange rate. There's a different components. I don't want to go too deep, into economics, but just on a very high level. So the first thing is, right now you get 1,000 UpX for $1. Right, and so we might have some external effects because of all the things which are currently going on. As you know, there's a lot of, let's say, money printing because of the current pandemic. So that can, but does not have to, result in actually an inflation of the dollar, right? And so that's also something we have to observe, because we don't want that the inflation of the dollar impacts the economy. Right now, we don't have any reasons to change anything. But let's say worst case, the dollar starts to inflate on an annual basis, $10 or $20. We have to think about other things in order to, again, keep our economy in Upland stable. And that's actually how we also, at least from our macroeconomic perspective, want to protect everything you guys have put into the game. So that is our approach, right? That we want to protect that in terms of stability of the economy, of the basic parameters, right? At the end of the day, it's money and supply and how you act on the marketplace, right? So it's like in real life. So you might buy something cheap and sell it high, or you buy something high and can only sell it for cheap. And it's the same thing for like businesses operating a business. Maybe you invest a lot of business, you have high returns, or maybe you have low returns. So we're not different than the real economy here.
Got it. Makes sense. All right, Dirk, and we have one more follow-up in that category. Is it Upland's goal to keep UpX as a stable coin? Will it be pegged to the USD at 1 to 1,000 indefinitely?
So first of all, I mean, now we can see what is actually a stable coin. What's the definition of a stable coin? I would not really say that UpX is a stable coin. It's just a fixed exchange rate, how we have defined it, right? Stable coins are a little bit different, especially in the crypto world. But what I just said, when we see that the US dollars has a negative impact on our economy, then we have to change things. That we're going to observe. And we have a couple of ideas how we can do that. But I think right now we have absolutely no reason. As you know, the exchange rate, the inflation of the dollar is still very stable. But let's see how things evolve in the next weeks and months in the US and also on the global level.
All right, this next question is about landmarks. Is it likely that a completed landmark will provide an economic benefit or a significant boost to the neighborhood rating? So the way that landmarks work is that, they're very notable on the map. They'll stand out very distinctly versus other buildings, and they'll have a pin as well. So through those kind of natural facts of, just attention on the map and the fact that people will be able to see them more easily, businesses that exist on a landmark are likely to get more traffic, and that's the economic advantage that landmarks do provide. In addition to the fact that, as communities grow, they can develop around landmarks, they can be integrated into events and other things as well, because they're quite literally iconic on the map. Okay, next question. With how fast the current 3 cities are being minted, how soon do you anticipate having to expand to a 4th city? So I will say that we actually have an announcement coming out soon. There will be an expansion in Q1. and a new city coming up at some point as well. But the details around those are not finalized yet. Dirk?
Yeah, maybe John, just to add in here, as you know, we have this Upland contributor network where we have a lot of creative people creating content for Upland. So we have Left House, you know, on YouTube. Sorry, when I don't mention now everyone. We have Recurry with his content. We have also the Apex podcast. So the plans currently are we coming on the Apex podcast next week, and we'll be announcing one of the next regions.
Maybe to add one thing again, when we, I mean, sometimes people, you know, hear the word expansion and kind of like they freak out. But we see as two different things. So we have two basically active areas on the Upland map. It's the West Coast, the San Francisco Bay Area, and the East Coast with New York area. And then an expansion can be, we differentiate between an expansion that kind of like creates more playroom in a specific area versus adding another area on the map. So for us, it's kind of like two different things and not necessarily the same.
Gotcha, yeah, important distinction to make there. Next question, when will we get a few average sized towns? Fresno is still the 34th biggest city in the US. Will all normal towns be wastelands? So we can definitely say no, not all normal towns will be wastelands. But you know, the truth is that hopefully that'll happen somewhere in the future, that we'll be expanding to some smaller cities, because at the end of the day, the entire world is open to being minted on a long enough timeline. But that can only happen if the economy can sustain that expansion. So as we add more players and more players are minting in the Upland metaverse, you know, we will be adding more cities, and you know, ideally we want to be able to support cities of all different sizes, because they can all contribute differently to the Upland metaverse and make this a more holistic worldwide experience. Okay, next question. Do you consider user votes on which cities in the future will be open for minting? So the truth is probably not, because there's a lot of factors that have to go into city selection, and popularity is a little bit lower on our list of priorities versus making choices that are to the benefit of the economy and to the benefit of you know, the most players sustainably. But we do envision auto spawning features when the economy eventually permits it. So we may be able to launch expansions or either small or even smaller subsets of the city in the future. However, we do not yet have details around that planned. Next question, when do you plan to leave vanilla in NYC? So this is a little bit of a tricky question, because vanilla is not a yes or no question. You know, we sometimes use that phrase as if it's just a single category, because New York has been in vanilla mode since it launched. But as we add more larger features to San Francisco, we'll also start to roll out features in New York. So you'll be able to see New York coming out of vanilla mode incrementally. And we are not yet providing a time frame for that. Next question, will we get treasure hunts in Manhattan? And if so, what kind of treasure hunts will there be? So the answer to that one is very simply yes. When Manhattan starts to come out of vanilla mode, one of the early features that will be activated is treasure hunts, and they will be very similar to the treasure hunts that are in San Francisco. Next question, will the next starter city also contain collections and treasure hunts, or is it going to start in vanilla mode? And the answer to that is, it really depends on the region / city that it's connected to. As you saw with Fresno, it immediately was out of vanilla mode because it was connected to San Francisco, almost as an expansion of San Francisco. But the policy will be different in places where the main region or city is in vanilla mode. So it'll be based on the anchor region. Next, will a starter city always be connected to San Francisco? The answer to that one is not necessarily. So that was kind of just alluded in my previous answer. There will be future starter cities that are coming off of other areas in Upland, other regions of Upland. And now we are going on to collections as a category of questions. So the first question under collections is, what will be the use of collections once the yield is cut? So there's a couple of things here. This question kind of came up in a few forms, and I think it's important to clarify that even as the yield gets cut, the collection will still maintain its multiplier, right? So if all players are getting less UpX from their properties, the multiplier actually becomes even more important. So in that respect, you could say that by contrast, collections will be more valuable as the yield is cut. And the yield will only be adjusted down. We do not currently have any plans to set the yield to 0. So, players can expect to get a yield from their properties for the indefinite future. Let's see here. Next question, do collections have any influence on business? The answer to that one is no, they do not. They just have the bearing that we all are aware that they have, which is the bonus. They're obviously very collectible and they provide a yield boost. And let's see here. Move down. Some of these questions are a little redundant. Okay, so the next question on collections has been a very popular point of conversation in the Upland community. It's being provided in this context by Misc. So the question is, some collections like Soho and Skyline have had the prices of unminted properties raised when the collections were revealed, 3 times in the case of Soho. That obviously makes the already minted properties in the same collection have a lower value per upsquare and lower earnings. Why can't the owners of these properties have the option to pay more UpX towards them up to the new established upsquare cost in order to raise the property value and earnings? Now, Don, did you want to take this one?
Sure. So this is actually something that we have been considering. We're still kind of like studying the longer term effects, because this does have an effect on the macroeconomy when we allow it, if we allow it to happen. So, I mean, the short answer is we're considering that option.
Got it. So this next question, Idan, can also go to you. The collections are now entirely based upon what they represent in real life, with the possibility of unlocking collections based upon businesses, new ideas, and other activities in game. How will it be determined what the new collections will be, when they will be unlocked, and what the corresponding multiplier will be?
Yeah, so maybe separate that question into 2 parts. So the first part is currently, and that is not destined to change. Collections in their content term is curated by the Upland team, and then it may be released in vanilla mode and revealed later on, or released immediately. But the content curation is done by us basically. And then the math aspect of it, so like what is the immediate reward? What is the boost? To which category does it fit? Whether it's ultra rare, etc. So all of these are governed by an algorithm that we've been using, which is pretty standard for. It's been used. It's the same algorithm that's been used for all the cities that have been launched up until now. And that kind of like spits out the mathematical properties of each collection.
Got it. Very cool. So that one's going to get pretty complicated. It's going to be hard to follow. I look forward to that getting rolled out. Okay. So the next question. This one is about the roadmap. Comes from MG. It's a very popular question. So the roadmap mentions that 15% of the development resources will be allocated to feedback / suggestions / improvements. Will the community be able to vote for a bug or change they want to see implemented most? All right, so there's a couple different things to note here. The first is that, as much as we're trying to get as much feedback and an analysis and suggestions from the community as possible, there's only so much that we can do with those. Because at the end of the day, we are still a professional team that is, working full time to make the best decisions that we can make possible. And because of that, Upland is never really going to be developed necessarily by committee, right? So we are looking for the best ways to, continue to take feedback and suggestions. And that's why, as was mentioned, we moved from the Trello board to what will soon be a new option that will allow players to see what the priorities are coming from the community suggestions and where they are in terms of when we're going to address them. So there'll be a kind of a mini Kanban board that'll be managing the suggestions. Now, when it comes to voting, we don't use voting directly to determine what's going to be what priority coming from the community, especially since voting only ever garners a small portion of the community. But we do use, the reactions in the feedback channel and the frequency of the reporting of different bugs and feature suggestions in order to determine, what is most popular and what we should look at above other features. Okay, so now we're moving on to the finance category of questions. These first couple of questions are going to be for Idan. When will fiat out sale max be above the current 1,000 restriction? And yeah, I guess the question is, sorry, when can a property be sold for more than $1,000?
Yeah, so I mean, taking a step back for just a tiny second, we've launched the fiat out closed beta. I think it was either October or November of 2020. We started then with a limit of $500 per sale. We've since expanded that to $1,000. I think it was late December, if I'm not mistaken. Keeping in mind, the reason we have this fiat beta is this is completely uncharted waters and new territory as it relates to marrying fiat transactions with blockchain transactions through the use of a third party, which for them is also it's kind of like a beta test of this whole concept. And this is why we're taking these baby steps that may seem a bit frustrating to some towards that open beta and eventually a full launch. So I can say that you can expect the same amount of time frame. So if probably something like 1 to 2 months passed between the last restriction lifting. The same kind of time frame would make us comfortable enough and our partners comfortable enough to kind of like increase. Keeping in mind that again, there are a lot of issues when it comes to involving fiat currencies. There's a lot of fraud issues that need to be kind of like they are highly regulated in the way that our partners are required to look at these transactions. And that's why, and the more you enable bigger transactions, the more kind of like diligent that our partners need to be in kind of like reviewing those. So those expansions will come. It will just take a bit more time and just a bit more patience. Ultimately, we do not want to have any restrictions on the amount of fiat price you can ask for a property or any other NFT.
This next question is kind of related to that with the regulatory complexity. Are there any plans for players to be able to send each other UpX?
Short answer is no, there are not.
Okay. All right, next question. Do you consider adding a feature such as, have you considered adding a feature such as a down payment? For example, for a Block Explorer sale, paying 10% down and paying the rest over time.
Yeah, I mean, again, as interesting as it sounds, we don't have plans for that in 2021. I would mention that we did say we did envision back when we released our business development roadmap, or we did envision banks as a potential business. So things like people lending UpX to other players or advances or stuff like that, that can definitely be something we envision for the future, but it's not going to come in 2021, most likely.
Got it. All right, next one. When selling properties for fiat, you can currently only withdraw your USD balance to PayPal. Do you have plans on for adding more options like withdrawing in stable coins, for example, or something else?
Yeah, so unfortunately, this element is something that's completely out of our hands, and we are totally dependent on our partners there with Tilia. And I know that they have a roadmap for improving their product, but as this is not under our control, I can't directly relate to that.
Got it. Okay, moving on to the next question. Why will future property earnings be reduced? Dirk, do you want to take that one?
Was on mute. So yeah, I think I already answered this one, because once we have enough transactions or enough activity between the players, then there's no reason for us to subsidize those earnings anymore, because then it's getting to fully open economy.
Got it. So this next one, Idan, I think you kind of already addressed this, but there is a cryptocurrency option when buying UpX. Will Upland add crypto payment options when buying property offered for sale in dollar? So it's like the property for USD. Will there be a property for crypto?
Right. Again, that specific path will be dependent on our partners in TiliaPay. Again, there may be an option in the future. Hopefully, if we can, figure out the regulatory requirements around that, maybe there will be an option for people to offer their property for sale for crypto. But again, that would need that will require us to solve that on a regulatory perspective.
Got it. This next question is for you, Dirk. It's kind of a couple questions packaged in here. The first one, will Upland use an alternative method to withdrawing funds, such as to an ERC token to accommodate the crypto users? Will we have the property token that is listed on exchanges? And will it be acceptable for players to airdrop tokens?
I think Ilan answered most of those questions, if I understand them all correctly. Right now we're in terms of paying out in other tokens, we're bound to Telia and what they are doing. Also, to take a step back, for everyone here on this AMA, we need to know that we are based in the US, and US has very strict regulations on a lot of things. And what is important for us is that we always stick very close and do everything which is highly approved by regulators. Also to give our players security, whatever they do, that nothing happens, one day. So that's a very important aspect to everything we do. That also, of course, always delays, unfortunately, things, because we have to talk to lawyers, we have to talk to different people to understand that, because in the area where we are in is completely, I wouldn't say completely, but there's a lot of gray things because it's also new. And in some ways we are even paving the ways, as being, on the innovation forefront. Yeah. So whatever has been suggested here, like airdrops or proprietary tokens that be listed on exchanges, I mean, we would love to have that, but we cannot give any clear timeline or something, because it depends on those regulations which we are bound to here in the US.
I would just mention maybe that, again, adhering to this regulation is what also allows us to appeal to a mass audience. So that's why it's easy to start playing Upland and easy to fiat in and start dealing with, assets that are basically still truly owned as NFTs on the blockchain.
Got it. All right, this next couple of questions will be about neighborhoods. So the first one, will neighborhoods be able to have exclusive activities? I believe that this would help boost the economy for traveling around Upland in the future. So the short answer there is yes. And an example would be cafes may offer exclusive access. Like I mentioned earlier, there will be cafes for punk rockers and cafes for people who like the opera. Certainly they won't have to be exclusive. Uplanders will have the ability to kind of target what types of communities that they want to build. Although it might not be exclusive for an entire neighborhood to control, who gets to go there. The individual businesses and the community can kind of curate that as a collective. Next question, with the introduction of Spark, will owners of small residential lots be able to increase the desirability of their neighborhoods by adding features such as landscaping, adding a pool, and etc.? Now, this very simple answer there is yes. That is the purpose of doing things like landscaping and adding a pool and other things like that. That will be to raise the desirability of your neighborhood. So, players that invest in that will be rewarded. And again, I want to say that that's one of the unique things about the actual true ownership that comes into play here. When you own something, you generally take care of it a little bit better than when it's just a digital asset that exists out there that you don't own. So that's one of the features that we're really excited about, is when people take ownership of their neighborhoods and they put a lot of effort into making it a desirable place to hang out in the metaverse. Okay, one more question on neighborhoods. This is about zoning laws and aesthetics. Will there ever be a measurement of aesthetics for a neighborhood? Eventually, will some neighborhoods have zoning laws such as no small businesses on a residential lot, certain size buildings not allowed, etc. Now, the answer here is that we don't have any short-term plans in implementing these types of policies, but over time we will delegate some level of self-governance options to neighborhoods, where neighborhoods will be able to kind of organize and figure out, if they do have a look and what types of regulations they would like to put around property development and businesses and things like that. But we don't have specific details on what those regulations or the degree to which they'll have control over different variables yet. Okay. Now we're moving on to a couple of questions about infrastructure improvement. All three of these will go towards Idan. So the first one is, there has been great growth in the Upland user base. Unfortunately, this has coincided with the in-game experience becoming laggy for some players. And the question is, are you experiencing scaling issues with the blockchain, or is it an issue on the Upland application server load side?
Yeah, so let me separate it into two separate kind of like areas. So first of all, yes, there is just the backend app, without being too technical, but we're gonna have to probably go into some technicalities with this answer. So there's the pure backend, right? So any app, whatever, Facebook, Google, they have a backend. They need to support, millions of users, and that part is basically today, as of today, it's pretty much a commodity. And I can say that we're currently using the latest technologies and the latest scalable technologies to author our backend, and our backend basically spans all of the game logic, all of the map logic, all of the competition logic, etc. Now, having said that, even though that we are using kind of like robust, scalable technologies, sometimes the code that we write can fall short at sometimes. And I think we've seen an example of that perhaps with one of the recent events when it launched. There was some kind of a technical problem that caused our game clients to send buffered requests. And again, I don't want to get too much technical, but that together with the push notification that we've sent created some kind of load on our backend. Now, the important thing to understand is because our infrastructure is scalable, we very easily identified that problem, fixed it, and released a fix to that. And that's kind of like one element. The other element, rightfully said, is the blockchain element. Now here we're talking about a totally kind of like, I wouldn't say totally uncharted waters, because again, by now, we have a lot of experience, but we are pretty much innovating and leading the way. So if you take EOS.io and the EOS mainnet, for example, today we are the biggest application that runs on EOS.io technology in the world. And we're discovering these new levels of scalability and activity that nobody has experienced before. And we are literally leading the way there. And as you can see, I don't know if you guys noticed, but we released information yesterday that for now, for example, we have started using our own node in the EOS mainnet to push transactions. So that's a big step forward. But if we look at the kind of like a grander scale, so we're not yet at capacity with the amount of transactions that the EOS mainnet can handle. But EOS.io per se, one of its kind of like biggest visions is the ability not necessarily to scale up, but to scale out using, for example, sister chains. So as Upland kind of like goes through these growth phases, there are technical solutions and technical ways that we are going to be able to expand, and we'll never get to a point where the blockchain is limiting our ability to kind of like grow as a company, as an economy, as a team. And I hope that by now we've kind of like convinced everybody that we are innovators and also technological innovators. So we are we have very good plans of how to take that and scale towards something that is way, way bigger than what it is today.
Got it. Yeah. So you actually, Idan, addressed a number of the bug questions there all in one. I will say there is one outstanding one. I think it's just a matter of the phrasing, but the question that keeps coming up is, when will we have European Upland servers? Because I believe Europe is, specifically Germany's been having a little bit of trouble lately. Yeah,
actually pretty soon. We're actually actively working on it. So it's one of the tasks, and it's probably going to be in 2021. But again, I like to say that, again, there's a lot of things that people are not exposed to, and you know, when we expand to Europe, it's not something we'll announce or do. It will just be like a general improvement for the infrastructure. But there's a lot of things going in the background as well that don't necessarily manifest as features that people see inside the game.
Got it. Cool. So this next category of questions is being grouped under communication, covering communication from a couple of different angles here. The first one being, when will there be an in-game chat? And the answer to that is cafes will most likely be the first place to have chatting options in-game. And we'll be looking at other options as well that are aligned with different functionality in the future. The next question, you've talked about improving communication, and I definitely have seen improvement. Thank you, we appreciate that. But really, communication is something that can always be improved. So how do you plan on improving it outside of having more AMAs? Well, there's a couple answers there, and one of them is definitely, well, you know, having these AMAs is going to be a huge improvement in our communication, especially since, you know, we announced that we're going to be doing them quarterly, and they will be tied directly to the quarterly roadmap updates. This means we're not just going to be giving a list of features that we hope to hit, but you'll actually see our process, understanding better how we're prioritizing features, why certain features may have taken longer than we expected, or went faster than we expected. And you know, we'll end up launching some things ahead of time. So these are all things that the community will be more in the loop on, as well as the fact that, you know, we recently brought on a head of community, X1 on Discord, who is still has been around for about a month, and he's been working on some improvements to our communication in the community, and that frees up other team members to improve their work on communication as well. So pretty much the truth is, across all fronts, we plan on, you know, improving the job that we're doing and finding better ways to get the information that players need to them so that they can have the best time in Upland and make the best decisions for their assets. All right, next question is, have you considered doing a collaboration with Upland Academy or something similar to provide a mandatory training to cover all the essential information a new Uplander would need to successfully join Upland? So the answer to this one is yes, for the most part. Although we're not considering it necessarily a collaboration, because that collaboration already exists, as Upland Academy is a part of the UCN. But we are going to start integrating educational materials into the onboarding experience and in other places, including the menu of Upland as well, so that players will be able to refer to those resources, and it'll help ensure that they're better equipped for navigating the complexities of the Upland economy. And over time, we'll look for opportunities where we can further integrate those resources into the interface so that they are surfaced at times when they're most valuable to players' decision-making. Okay, one more question on communication. What is the strategy for Upland to keep players involved and connected and to prevent the virtual Upland world from collapsing? Well, we definitely don't plan on allowing the Upland world to collapse. As everyone in this call, I'm sure, is aware, we've been seeing consistent growth, especially when we spend money on ads. We see a lot of players come in, and we see a lot of activity from those players. Now, when it comes to retention, we're constantly working on different ways to improve retention, from, you know, the gamified mechanics to releasing new features to solving bugs and various issues that come up. And, you know, that's just a big part of our roadmap. As we develop more features, we will expand the broad appeal of Upland, and that'll create more opportunities for more players. And the more opportunities there are, the more buy-in there will be, and the more retention we'll see. So the short answer is that we're doing, you know, everything possible across all the various fronts to improve retention in Upland. And again, you know, just to note, this is the tip of the iceberg, as I'm sure many players are aware. We have been holding off on doing heavy recruitment until we have some more features in place, and we are gearing up to do that very soon. So you'll have a lot more new community members coming in and hanging out. Okay, this next set of questions is focused on Alcatraz. All right, so the first one, and the first couple are from T. Davis. Does the team believe that a Google submission form that can often take days to weeks to take effect will still represent the best method for reporting suspicious accounts? So our answer here is that this is kind of a complicated issue because there is an inherent conflict between the notion of true ownership, right, allowing players to really own what they purchase in Upland, and TOS violations. So we are in the process of finding a better balance between those two, because we don't have the ability to take property away from players. And that's obviously something that's very intentional. That's something that we designed in as a core part of our platform's value system. So we are finding better ways to first, locate suspicious activity, and then to follow up on that suspicious activity with the appropriate measure. And Alcatraz was an innovation that we made in 2020, and we'll continue to add more policies and functionality around Alcatraz to better support our efforts to have a fair and stable community in Upland, a law-abiding community to a certain degree. Next question here on Alcatraz is, what's the team's opinion on the hundreds of properties belonging to jailed players which are essentially lost forever? Will there ever be a way to recover these? And so, kind of following up my last answer, the truth is that no, we will not be doing anything about these properties. That is one of the aspects of true ownership that we are honoring. We do not have the ability to take property away from players. So, our goal is to get players reintegrated back into the Upland community and the Upland economy. So when they violate the terms of service, we reach out to them. We try to figure out, a fair way for them to kind of release any of the advantages that they would have gained, whether it's funneling properties or doing something shady with UpX. So our goal is to reactivate those players and make them a part of the Upland economy again. Because at the end of the day, they do own the properties that they own. And that applies for all Uplanders. Next, let's see, that one was already answered. There are currently dozens, maybe hundreds of players in Alcatraz that will most likely be there indefinitely. That amounts to a significant amount of jailed properties as well. Sorry, moving down to the point. Since most new players start in FSA cities like Fresno, and as users increase, so does the quantity of players who will violate the TOS in places like Fresno. So what is Upland doing to be more proactive? Well, again, I think my last answer applies here, that, we are trying to reactivate those players and get them to be law-abiding citizens. So, the truth is that they will not be there indefinitely. Just because, we may be a little backlogged at certain times, or you see more players in Alcatraz sometimes than others, doesn't mean that they're going to be there indefinitely. So, again, we're looking for more solutions to get them back into the game and to get those properties as active parts of the Upland economy. Okay. All right, and then we have a few more miscellaneous questions here. The first one's on trading. The question is, are basic negotiating features planned, like counter offer options or even package deals for trading multiple properties between users? Idan, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, pretty straightforward answer. Yes, these are planned and it's a part of the roadmap. It's just not, just need to follow up on roadmap updates for when it's going to be scheduled for development. But the big answer is yes.
Cool. And the next question here is about competition for Dirk. What does the development team think is Upland's competitive advantage over other dApp games selling land NFTs like Mega Cryptopolis, Decentraland, and Alien Worlds? What is the team's strategy in order to retain and compete for users in this market?
Yeah, so first of all, I think these are all great games. I mean, there's always teams who think about things and how they want to develop their own product. In terms of competitive advantage, ideally, there's a way or a path that we can all collaborate. And it's very much like in the non-crypto or non-blockchain world. You have a lot of games out there. Some people like, the green game, others like more the blue game or whatever. So I think that's nothing where you could say, this is always, depends on personal taste. But when it comes to where we do differentiate, I think we have on the technical level, Idan explained a little bit, but on the technical level, we have a huge advantage because of the blockchain we've chosen, because we can do a lot of things which are kind of tricky on other blockchains because they have whole high fees, or they just slow. Just I take the example when we open up Fresno, we sold really thousands of properties in a very short amount of time. I think this would have not been possible on other blockchains. So this is a technical advantage we have. On the product level, then we're introducing some things. We have the fiat out as the first, to my knowledge, game who introduced that as the first, or blockchain game who has that. So that's something. We have also fiat in, a very easy way, crypto in. That's possible. We have iOS and Android apps, so that's on that level also something which is quite unique. And last but not least, what is very important is the possibilities that we are based on the real world, and that will open up completely new ways of doing things. Right now, of course, due to the pandemic, we didn't go into that direction too much yet, but just imagine that we can do also things in real life and in combination with things what are going to happen in the app. So this is not short term, but we clearly see that also happening mid to long term. So and we have lots of more differentiators, but I think these are the core ones. And maybe Idan, did I forget anyone or?
No, I think that's a great answer, and again, I always like to say that our superpower is our ability to easily onboard the everyday gamer, or just somebody who's interested in this type of game. And a lot of time we'll have people coming into the game, and then just after playing a while, just realize the complexities and the intricacies and the value proposition that blockchain and NFT and true ownership brings to them. So for us, it's kind of like the other way. Usually when people come to usual games or usual dApps, they are blockchain first, and then they kind of like find the gaming elements. For us, it's a lot of times it's kind of like the other way around. And maybe another thing to add is again, that's kudos also to, by the way, to Dirk, who's the mastermind behind the whole macroeconomical model of Upland. And we really, everything that we do, everything that we develop, we think about the economy first, and the health of the economy and sustainability, and the way it can develop the Upland metaverse. And I think that is a real kind of like secret sauce that we have today in Upland. And as the features become more elaborate, as the interactions among players become more elaborate, this will really lift up kind of like I think Upland over traditional games. And I'm not talking about just dApps, I'm talking about games in general, because we're really doing something new here.
Yep. So this next question is about community. Question is, do you plan to have a Zoom/online convention for the community of Upland when there are big releases and newly implemented features and so on? So we do not have any big Upland conference planned right now. We would love to have one in person and meet a bunch of our wonderful members, but I can say that we will start to plan one. We don't know when we're going to be able to meet up in person, so we will start to plan some digital events, and we will make them really interesting. And I would love to hear more input from the community on how we can do so. If anybody has experience putting on these types of events, feel free to ping me, because that's something we're very excited to get into, to provide more engagement and a better sense of community connection, beyond the Discord interactions and the in-game interactions. And then we have one more question here that's on the list, and then I'll go to the extra questions that were posted in Discord since this combo started. This last question is on VR, and Dirk, you can take this one. Is there any talk of pinning Upland in reality so people can use VR to see their properties when at physical locations?
So, I mean, in the more distant future, of course, we were thinking about VR. But if you ask me, and if you think about what Upland is, we were just talking about the differentiation. If you look at other, let's say, metaverses, they're always fantasy worlds, right? So it makes sense maybe that they have more VR aspects to it. If you ask us, I think for us makes probably more sense to do things around AR, so augmented reality or mixed reality, because since we're connected to the real world, we can do obvious things. I would not exclude completely VR. However, I think if we would have the choice, we'd probably go first to AR things because they're so much closer. In addition, probably also what you need to know is that our vision is also that Upland becomes a fully fledged platform where we have third-party developers putting stuff on top of Upland, very much like Apple and App Store. Where once we have more users on the platform, we'll hopefully attract also more developers who can do things. And I clearly see that they might also come up with cool VR ideas and things you can do. But let's see what that future will bring there.
Yeah, and Dirk, I'll add on to the AR part. I consider that one of our unique advantages. Even though I know we haven't committed to it yet, I can't help but find the idea so exciting that we've solved the base layer of in augmented reality, who gets to choose what goes where, right? That's a really complicated issue. And it's one of the first things that we solved with the property allocation and property ownership, right? So I think that's just a really cool mechanism that can lend itself to AR in such a powerful way that, again, these other platforms don't really have access to in the same way, right? You can't visit San Francisco in alien worlds and have the property allocated with the same type of system that we have that can determine, what type of AR experience you get there. So anyway, that's something that I'm really excited about learning more about.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm going to the extra questions that we had on Discord that came in after we started today. So the first one that I think we didn't really address is, will Upland be giving any business licenses to players as a contest reward in the future, or will Upland possibly be donating business licenses to individuals who may not have the financial commitment to open a business, but have the capabilities to make in-game assets?
Yes.
So,
yeah.
was that an answer there?
Yes.
Yeah, yes. That's
Yeah.
it. Quick and dirty.
Yeah. So we will be finding ways to get business licenses into worthy hands if we believe that they can do an effective job. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Cool.
That's you have to mind. I mean, the way it works, maybe also again coming back to the economy, is, of course, one hand, you can act in Upland, you bring in your capital, but very much like in life, maybe also you have human capital, and Idan hinted at it. We clearly also see that people can come into Upland and do, just like in real work, work for hire for others, and like this, they earn some money, and with this money, they can maybe start building a business or doing something else with that. So it's, again, we're simulating somehow the real life here. It's very, 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 it's a big parallel.
Yeah, maybe it's also worth mentioning why we have business licenses at all. And again, the primary function of business licenses is to make sure that businesses are not kind of like depleted in their value. So for example, if we were to launch Block Explorer shops as a business and everybody could just spawn one, suddenly you'd see 1,000 Block Explorer shops in San Francisco, right? And that would kind of like take away from the ability of these business owners to actually make a profitable business out of it. So we're trying to limit the amount of specific types of businesses that operate in specific locales, so they won't get overcrowded with those businesses. And that's basically the primary function of business licenses.
Got it. Okay, so another question here from the Discord is, when will we be able to walk around Upland in the first person / third person view? Dirk, it's kind of similar to the AR VR question, but a little bit more basic, right?
Yeah, of course, 3D view can be without VR and AR, right? So that's and actually you can do that a little bit already today, right? If you go on the app, you tilt it a little bit, and if you know all the nice houses, and in theory, you can already walk through that. Yeah, so that, I mean, independent from VR and AR, I mean that is coming, but
yeah, and again, if you want to nerd out a bit on that concept, again, if we truly want to evolve into a 3D world, which we do envision in the future, it will also require us to adopt different platforms such as Unity or platforms that specialize in 3D. Whereas today, kind of like we are a 2D world that has 3D elements in it. So I would say this is not something that's going to come very soon, but definitely a vision for the future.
I mean, Upland's going to look in 5 years completely different than what you see today. That's clear.
So here's another question I see coming up in a number of different ways. Does Upland have any plans to integrate other blockchains other than EOS in terms of what's powering the ownership?
Well, I would say that we are currently highly vested in EOS IO. So again, let's separate, for example, for a second between the EOS mainnet and EOS IO technology. So we definitely see the prospect of branching out, like I mentioned earlier, scaling out versus scaling up using EOS sister chains. So that's definitely a possibility. And actually, we actually foresee that when Upland becomes big enough that the EOS mainnet is not enough to sustain it, that means that also by definition, Upland is big enough to sustain its own public. So a public EOS IO chain that is dedicated to Upland. So that could be a very exciting thing. Now, when we talk about integrations with other blockchains per se, like Ethereum or other blockchains, we view that as kind of like building bridges between them. And one of these types of bridges is going to be the NFT portal, which is actually coming pretty soon. So the ability to bring assets cross blockchains from other worlds into the Upland world, definitely.
Got it. Cool. Makes sense. Now, I'm looking through the questions real quick. I just want to say to everyone, I apologize if we didn't get to address your question directly. There were a lot of questions that were coming in the last like 20 minutes or so. And I think we addressed most of them. Some of them were outside of the scope of this particular AMA. Because remember, our focus was really on the 2021 roadmap that we put out. And so we tried to direct things back into that 2021 context, past the roadmap that we released. Things may change in the future. But it's difficult for us to have strong opinions, especially things that we can commit to if they're not going to be around until 2022 or even further down the road. So I think that wraps it for the questions we're going to be taking for today. Of course, as many of you know, we're often on Discord and available through other social media channels, although Discord's the best way to reach us. So you can always ask questions there. It's often better to ask questions in the general channel or new players channel, because one of the beautiful things about Upland is our community just knows so much. And there are so many times where I'm about to answer something or David or Idan is about to answer something, and a player jumps in. T. Davis, I'm looking at you, and gives a wonderful paragraph long answer that I couldn't have done better myself. So there are many community members, especially the community moderators. I'd love to give a shout out to all of them that are doing a great job at educating players on how things actually operate. So asking questions in Discord is a great way to not just get your answer, but also to generate conversation. And conversation is really in depth in areas like our debate channel and our economics channel, where you guys can really get into some details. And when you do that, that also helps us learn. As a team, we're able to learn your perspectives on various economic questions and future questions. And that gives us a lot of perspective on different ways to think about things and maybe even ways that we can improve. So I just wanted to start to set up the closing for this AMA. Obviously, this was about the 2021 roadmap for Upland. We're very excited about it. It's going to be a great year. There's going to be a ton of huge features. So much of 2020 came into fruition and provided us with the foundation to do the work that we're doing now. And we're now prepared to bring Upland to the next level, to become the blockchain metaverse for mass adoption. And I want to thank everyone who showed up to this AMA and who has participated in this community and who has purchased property in Upland, participated in events in Upland, because it's all of you that have helped make this happen, that have given us the feedback and the understanding of what community building really means, that's necessary to create the most powerful metaverse in the world. So thank you all so much for participating in this AMA and asking wonderful questions. Hopefully, we did a good job at addressing things in a satisfactory way. And we hope to see you all in the next AMA, which will be next quarter. So in addition to that, I want to give a shout out to a couple of things we have coming up. So in just 32 minutes, Upland will be having an auction for a special property that is a part of a charity event that is being put on by our community members. If you look at the Play, Give, Connect channel, In our Discord, you can see more information about what they're doing to raise money for cancer research through St. Jude's. It's a really amazing effort. Some of our community members came to us and talked to us about it. So we wanted to find ways that we can better support this effort. And so one of the things that we're doing, we're auctioning off this piece of property in New York. It is a very iconic hospital. And 100% of the proceeds from this auction will go to St. Jude's Cancer Research. And the Upland team will also be matching 100% of the proceeds that are raised through this auction. That will also go to cancer research. So make sure you give that a look. And I'm sure that property will go very quickly because we have a very generous community. So again, that is now in 31 minutes. We will have that auction up. And I also want to say we have 3 winners that produced questions for the AMA today. They had the most popular questions. In first place was MG. In second place was Stirs Merlin. And in third place, God, I love that username, G30G4-3BR4. Thank you so much for your wonderful questions. They were very popular ones, and they were addressed in this AMA. So I want to pass the mic back to Dirk and Idan. Is there anything else you guys would like to comment on in closing here?
Yeah, John, I want to thank you for moderating this this great AMA and doing a great job. So kudos and thanks. And thanks for the entire community. We are in an amazing growth phase, as you guys are seeing. And this is only going to just get more exciting and much bigger.
Yeah,
Cool.
we're at 0.1% of Upland's capabilities, and you know, we're excited. You know, and let's build the Earth's largest community together, the Earth's metaverse.
Yep, and I just want to thank everyone for being patient in me reading some of these questions. As many of you know, we have a worldwide community, so we get people writing these questions for the AMA in a lot of different linguistic styles. So reading all through them, I stumbled quite a little bit, but you know, we got through this, and I think we got a lot of great information out there. So, you know, our community members, let us know how we did on Discord. Let's keep the conversation going, and let's continue to transfer knowledge to our community. So thank you, and that's a closing of our Q1 Roadmap AMA for 2021. Thanks, everybody.
Let's rebuild the world. Bye-bye.
Rebuild the world. All right.